We good to go? What are we doing?
Yeah, he said once the thing went down.
Yeah, we can start.
Okay, we're good to go.
Roll call.
Oh, hold on, got a gavel.
All right.
To start. All right. Tony,
All right, Mr. Bartlett,
Here.
Mrs. Graves,
Here.
Dr. Lewis,
Here.
Ms. Palzolo,
Here.
Mrs. Rankin,
Here.
and Mr. Stelzer.
Here.
all right, we're obviously going to dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance. Y'all have got copies of the minutes from the last meeting.
Yes. Yep. Yes.
Everybody mainly good with the minutes?
Mhm.
Y'all
Yeah.
good with the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, there's just one thing that I want to mention. Last time I mentioned that lawsuit that was pending in the state of Ohio versus the public utilities, regarding utilities access to our public right-of-ways. I want to state that case is no longer pending. It's been resolved. It's not favorable to municipalities, and we're going to have to work with the municipality now when they want to come in here later on regarding the 5G and the poles. I just want to.
Bill, that's in regards to where they can locate the poles, is that correct, as far as they're having called the easement to put the poles wherever they choose? And we have nothing to fight back with.
Yeah, essentially that's it. Yes.
Well, actually, we're looking at that right now. Joe had asked me to take a look last week, and we've been looking at it. I talked to Bill today. The shorter answer is probably we're out of luck. But the long answer is that if we work with the company that installs these poles, we have a very good opportunity to get them to put them where we want them to be put. So I think Bill's he's embarked upon doing that already, haven't you?
At this point in time, it's just kind of a question of you just got to kind of make nice with them and hope that they'll give you some flexibility in where they're placed. Don is going to set a meeting. We're going to meet with the representative of the company probably next week. I'll have more information for you then. I just wanted to mention it now because it was in the minutes and it was not exactly accurate. All right, so do I have a motion and a second to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Go ahead.
Second. All right, Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Mrs. Graves,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Palazzolo,
Aye.
and Ms. Rankin.
Aye.
All right, those minutes will be accepted.
Don't
Joe.
forget what to say.
Oh, Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, Joe. All right, moving on to communications. You've seen Chief Hines' report, Feitner's report, Sherp's report. If you got any questions about any of these, you can contact them, email them. Same for the Deanna's report out of the tax administration. The one thing I do want to call your attention to, which you should all be aware of, is it's a copy of it's in there someplace. It's that refund check that we got from the Bureau of Workers' Comp, the $48,000 check.
Right.
Yeah, a nice little gift to us all. And while Ed is here, I thought I would go ahead and reference a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the easement for the Donnellys down on Homewood, I believe it is. I spoke with Ed about this, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, I guess. He's not been having good access to the courthouse. He needs to get into the courthouse to verify. Ed, do you want to chime in on this a second?
Well, what we want to do is take a look at what easements are recorded and which properties they do in fact affect near the Donnelly property. I think our initial review was that the Donnellys probably could go ahead and do that, but without affecting anyone else or any other properties. big question comes down to who's going to pay for it all. And I think the Donnellys have agreed to do that. Is that correct?
To be honest with you, I'm not really certain about that at this point. I thought we would sort of proceed to
Yeah,
find
we're
out.
kind of waiting.
Yeah, to see whose easement it is. You know,
Yes, yeah, this is one where we have to be a little careful on, where we don't want to say that, yeah, we'll abandon this easement and then do so and find out that it really serves some other properties, because then we could really buy ourselves a lot of problems if we did that. So, and, you know, God only knows when the courthouse is going to be reopened. Even for some, the only time I can get in there is for some sort of emergency hearing, to go in and do any kind of research in the recorder's office. You cannot get in there. Probate court, you can't get in. And I honestly, I don't think we'll have the access to it till after June 1st.
Wow.
So we're opening restaurants before the courthouse? It's interesting.
The good news for Mr. Stelzer and I is that they're opening up barbershops on Friday.
Yeah, I could use it too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you might want to throw Bill under that bus too. Tony and Rob seem to be holding their own.
Um, but
And
look at- yeah.
Believe me, my appointment's already been made, so.
So is mine, Joe. 12 noon Friday.
And just another quick reminder, you know, it's that Light Ohio blue that's been going on now. It'll be going until May 15th. So if you all can display, you know, some kind of a blue light, a blue ribbon, a blue, you
My
know,
light bulbs are in like Marcy's.
okay, yeah.
Two on the bluff.
Yeah, so, I mean, several residents, Marcy's got a good display. Several residents have already kind of taken this up. It's kind of a nice thing.
yeah,
Yeah, and as long as Maggie, you brought up about the restaurants, I want to sort of quickly run this past you because I don't really, this is the kind of a thing I was contacted by the manager over at the Quarter Bistro here very recently, and he is desirous to expand the footprint on the outdoor dining area because he wants to be able to space his tables. He wants to keep the same number of tables, but to accommodate the spacing.
Mhm.
Now, ordinarily, this might be something that, you know, we'd have to go back through the planning commission and haggle this and so on and so forth. I think this falls within the area that it's something that I or Don could actually make the call on because it's a temporary measurement. And we would obviously like to expedite this for him because I think, Maggie, I think they want to open the restaurant on Friday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, we've gotten carry out. They're doing
Well,
carry
for
out.
carryouts, but I mean,
Yeah.
they want to have sit down outdoor
Yeah.
dining.
Right.
Are they
right?
just doing outdoor? They don't want to do indoor, just outdoor?
I don't think they can yet, can they?
Not till-
Indoor at all?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Store only until like the 21st, I think.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm asking here is we kind of just maybe take a straw poll if anyone has an objection to this.
Hey, Bill,
Where,
right, where are they
Where are
gonna
they
go to the
thinking?
theater?
No, actually, he's going to go the other direction toward the old PNC Bank. And
Really?
yeah, it's gonna, I think he's only talking about possibly moving it maybe say 5 to 7 feet. And it was going to be in sort of a triangular pattern, moving out a little bit, moving back the doorway. So he would not be blocking in any way, restricting the current sidewalk.
But if he goes in front of the theater, I mean, the theater's not gonna open till when? Do we know? For a while, I would imagine.
For a while.
And
I think
I'm
it's,
worried about blocking the sidewalk going north on Madisonville Road.
no, I mean, there's actually more room on that side that he
Oh,
could
there-
do
oh.
this.
Yeah,
You know.
there's a wide space there. I'm fine with that. I think that anything that we
You're-
can do to support them is great.
Yeah.
I agree.
you're talking towards the bank? Sorry, I got confused.
Yeah,
Mhm.
toward the bank, yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah, no, I'm
I
supporting
just
that.
think to make an accommodation, you know, these guys have, you know, obviously they've been suffering enough here. This is kind of an emergency thing. He needs to know this by Friday. You know, let's do something to try and get him up and running.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
would he? I mean, if he even go both ways, if it would help out, do that.
Because then they could get a full 6 feet and probably keep,
Right.
even
yeah,
add tables if they have the staff. I mean, I'm fine with
Yeah, knock yourself
all the
out.
way down past that empty old village kitchen space and all the way down to the end of the bank.
Here's something that you have to be careful about. I don't remember who I talked to, maybe just Bill, but probably months ago, I got a call from the owner of the Quarter Restaurant. You know, the rumor mill is rampant, and there's that fish restaurant going there where the Village Kitchen used to be. And the quarter owner is very, very concerned about how much access we're going to give that new facility to the outside there for
Outdoor
Right.
dining.
Outdoor dining.
and I know there's more safety issues there when you're looking at the east side of the square than you would on the west side. And that's something that Rick might want to take a look at some point in time. But all I'm saying is if you give these guys permission right now, make sure that it's temporary.
It's
Right,
temporary.
well, yeah, we put an end date on it.
Precedent for anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I
so
think
then-
we definitely have to put an end date on it.
And then do we, is there room for the exemplar to expand their outside seating?
They haven't really inquired about that yet. I mean, I would assume they might be able to move it down just a teeny bit, but I
Yeah,
don't know. I mean,
Steps.
I would think that an accommodation there could be made should they, require it or ask
Right.
for it.
yeah, I
Yeah.
can see they could get another 5-6 feet out of that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and you probably all read in the newspaper that all the owners of the Over the Rhine restaurants, they've asked the city to close some of those streets up
Yeah.
there. The city's granted their request. So at least I think that's kind of good that they're doing that.
Huh.
We
All
can't
right,
exactly close the pike.
If we're all in agreement on that, then I'll go ahead and give the okay for that.
Okay, yep,
I just want to check. So Ed, you're okay with that too? I mean, it's okay. We can, it's all, because it's temporary, we can go ahead and do it this
I
way.
am fine with that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, under permission to address council, I received an email from our good friend Jennifer Mansler, and you probably all have gotten the same one, wanting to know where we are, with the 5G. Now, I know, Avia, you've gone ahead and set a meeting for Thursday, the 21st, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah,
Correct, yeah.
and I'm putting together some additional information for you.
Yep.
So I'm just referencing this. She has inquired about it, and we'll tell her that the
Right.
meeting has been set. You
Right.
can
Hey,
do
on
that.
that, just a little bit about, on that same note, I was talking to some residents and they had said that, I guess last fall or last summer, that they had come through and put 5G wires underground already through Mariemont. Was that something just different?
Well, I don't know about last summer, but I mean, here recently
Or recently, sorry.
yeah,
Maybe
real
it was
recently, they did run a new cable, a fiber optic type cable, but it's linking that one bigger tower that's over there in Madville with a tower that's down near Newtown in some way. Now, they're not going to be tapping that cable. Households are not going to tap the cable for access to 5G that way. 5G will basically be coming to you via, an electronic or an electromagnetic signal that's generated off the poles.
Yeah, it's wireless.
It's wireless.
So
Yeah.
So
it's
that was
different than
part of
5G.
the cable, so that fiber optic cable is part of the 5G network, but that's not how it's being disseminated
No.
to.
Yeah, well, at least this is my understanding to this, I'm not saying I'm an expert on 5G, but the bigger issue to the Manslers, of course, is that she's very fearful of the radiation and the harmful health effects. So this is why it's in your committee, because she sees it as being a safety issue, and you'll have to address it that way. It's going to be a separate argument that I'm going to have with these people on the placement of the poles. I'm very distressed that they just think they can come into this village and put poles wherever they, please. And that's, that, like I said, that's kind of a separate argument.
Can that be
Sure.
mitigated a bit by the fact that like the square and, because we went through and, talked 2 or 3 years ago about like what parts of the square are still historic and require, I mean, maybe we can limit it a little bit based on that definition.
Hopefully,
Keep it
yeah.
off the square.
Bill and I talked about that today, Maggie. That's a good suggestion. And I think he's on top of that, aren't you?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I mean,
as far as saying this is a historical area, it's off limits type thing? Is
right.
that mean?
Like we're not sticking your towers on top of like the theater, because we did discuss which portions, and we clarified which portions of the square were to be historic in terms of like, if you wanted to make changes, you'd have to go through the ARB to do so. And
yeah, but like I said, unfortunately, and Maggie, what you're kind of talking about there, what kind of came out of that was this lawsuit, that kind of cropped
Oh,
up. But
okay.
apparently the lawsuit, didn't bear fruit. And
Okay,
the Ohio legislature, passed some kind of a something, and it didn't pass muster either. So we're almost back to basically, we just got to make nice with these guys and try and negotiate as best we
Right.
can.
so they ruled in the favor of the businesses, not the municipalities.
To this point. Now, obviously, I mean, they don't have access to our public right of ways. I mean, they just can't stick them any old place,
Mhm.
but
And have any communities had success putting kind of ordinances in place to prevent them to come? Because I feel like I read somewhere that someone had mentioned like some other communities put some ordinances on the books.
I tell you, I'm not aware of that, Avia, but I'll look to it. I'm part of the Municipal Lawyers Association, so I'll take a look at it. Hadn't heard about it. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know they were trying to put 5G around places like Mariemont and other areas. So the answer to your question, I don't know, but I'll look into it.
Well, I would be curious how far advanced they are in it, or if it's just they're throwing it out to all municipalities. And then they'll be like, well, this little one of 3,500 people and this little one of 4,000 people, we're not going to worry about it. I mean, I don't know what their parameters are for where they want to target, if they have any.
well, I think 5G technology obviously it's the wave of the future. I mean, ultimately, it's probably going to be everywhere. Now, I did talk to Tom Brinkman about this, regarding the lawsuit and what the Ohio legislature had done, and he's trying to be very helpful. But as it stands right now, I mean, the lawsuit didn't pass muster, neither did the new law. And then I talked with the mayor over in Evendale, who has also had a lot of experience with this. And he was basically saying the same thing. I mean, it's just kind of a make nice thing for right now. Now, I've got a couple of other communities that I'm going to be calling that have had this type of, experience to see how they handled it, or, what can or can't be done. And obviously, I mean, Ed is going to be doing some, some checking and background work on
Yeah,
this.
I've got my guy working on it already. So.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so if we're all good on that, let's pay the bills. I need a motion to pay the bills.
So I have lots of Bill questions,
Okay,
not necessarily Bill Brown questions. Maybe I'm just getting picky because I'm concerned about money right now. So for Eileen, that's her salary. Is that her salary? I just didn't, because she's new. I haven't seen it before.
yes.
Yeah.
And then I know we talked a long time ago about, I think, okay, I may be completely wrong, but I'm thinking it was regarding Bill Fiedler and his, like what he's doing for us. Is that the service that some people contract with the county to have done? Or is that a separate thing that I'm thinking of?
It might be a separate thing that you're thinking of. I mean, some communities do basically let the county, because they don't have building departments.
Right.
So the county essentially, is the building department, so to speak, for the community. And all building permits, all inspections, all plan reviews are done by the county. Yes.
Right. So Bill, though, he does the inspections, correct?
Bill does the inspections.
He does what Dave Kenzie did, and he also holds.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's important. Fiedler holds the license under which we're kind of operating the department.
Okay. I don't know if we want to look into this because it's not like this is an exorbitant amount of money, but I mean, that comparison is a possibility when we're looking at expenditures. I know Rob asked, like.
Already on the table, Megs.
Okay, gotcha. And then did we know, this is just me, did we know that we were going to need to replace the 2 modems for the cardiac monitor, or did they break out of nowhere and we incurred $2,000 worth of money that we didn't expect?
Chief, do you know anything about the cardiac monitors being replaced?
Cardiac monitor.
Yeah, is that what you said, Maggie, the cardiac monitors?
Yeah.
Down like the
Stryker.
second thing under the paramedics, third thing, second thing. I just wondered if that's like a maintenance thing that happens that you do, or if they broke and it was a surprise, or do we budget for this?
Give us a sec. We're looking at it.
Yeah, it's the little more than halfway down. The line item amount is 1928.
Yeah, there's 4 paramedic items. It's the third
Right.
striker.
I believe those were, if I remember right, I think those were replaced due to needing replacement on a maintenance issue. But I will check on it. Is that Maggie's asking?
Yeah, it's Maggie that's asking.
Maggie, I'll check on that and I will report back to you tomorrow. How's that?
That's fine. And the only reason that I'm asking about it is we've talked about having kind of like that rolling kind of 1, 3, 5 year expectations in each division or department in terms of what their budgeting needs would be. So if that's something that comes up regularly, just add it in. I hadn't heard about it being discussed before, which means nothing. I haven't been at every meeting, but just, you know, so that we know what's coming.
I'll check on it. I think it's a routine maintenance thing that comes up not every year. I think it's those last pretty long, but I don't want to give you an answer. It's wrong. I'll check and get back to you tomorrow.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have.
Okay, anybody else got questions? No? All right, do I have a motion and a second to pay the bills?
So moved.
Okay, you had the motion. Who's got the second?
I'll second.
Okay, Kelly's got the second. Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Mrs. Graves,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Palazzolo.
Aye.
Ms. Rankin,
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
All right, we will pay the bills. Have to go my agenda. All right, the reports are next.
Yes, we have one report from the Finance Committee
Yes.
regarding proposed change to Mariemont Healthcare Plan. The Finance Committee met on Friday, May 1st, 2020 at 3:00 p.m. via video conference to discuss changes to the healthcare plan for full-time Mariemont employees. Present at the meeting were Finance Committee Chair Rob Bartlett, Finance Committee members Kelly Rankin and Joe Stelzer, and Council Member Marcy Lewis. Mariemont currently participates in the Center for Local Government Benefits Plan. This is a consortium of municipalities that pools their money to self-fund health care and dental care insurance. Haran administers the plan and provided us with data on what other communities are offering their employees. Attached is a spreadsheet that includes Mariemont's current plan and the plans of some of the communities that we benchmark with on salaries. The first key takeaway of the communities we benchmark with, Mariemont is the only community that does not require its employees to pay a portion of the healthcare premium. Second, of the benchmark communities that offer the same plan as us, Platinum A, the employee contribution ranges from 9.8% to 19.1%. Third, Mariemont also has the lowest HSA contributions. Fourth, some of the benchmark communities offer multiple plans for their employees to choose from, with varying employee contribution rates and HSA contributions. The table below summarizes the key changes being proposed by the Finance Committee. All right, the current Platinum A has for employee premiums, HSA and HSA employee plus one is 0%, $600 and $1,200. The proposed is the Platinum A has 10%, $1,000 and $2,000. The Gold A, 7.5%, $1,100 and $2,100. And Platinum C is 5% and $1,500 and $3,000. So if we did not change anything, Mariemont's cost would increase starting August 1st by roughly $27,000 a year. If we implemented the proposed plan, the potential savings to offset the increase range from $18,000 to $62,000, depending on which plan the employee choose. If 100% of the employees choose to stay in Platinum A, then the offsetting savings would be $18,000. If 100% of the employees chose to move to Gold A, then the savings would be $33,000. And if 100% of the employees chose to move to Platinum C, then the savings would be roughly $62,000. The Finance Committee also reviewed the dental plan. Currently, Mariemont covers 100% of the cost of the dental plan, except for families. This is consistent with other communities who offer dental, so the Finance Committee is proposing no changes there. It should also be noted that the cost of the employee's premium for both healthcare and dental care are pre-tax, so it will reduce the employee's taxable income. It is important to remember that healthcare and dental care are part of the total compensation our employees receive, which is why it's important to look at salary and benefits as a package and not individual items. This is also being implemented in the same year that we have increased the potential bonus for all full-time employees. Previously, the bonus was $250 for everyone, regardless of performance. Now employees can earn a bonus ranging from 0 to $850, depending on the performance. Implementing this change requires a change to the salary ordinance at the recommendation of the village solicitor. The change to that ordinance is being submitted concurrent with the report. Open enrollment for the new healthcare plan runs from June 8th to the 26th. Having the first reading tonight allows us to have the third reading and vote by June 8th, thus avoiding having to pass this as an emergency measure. If council would like to make any changes to the Finance Committee's proposal, those can be incorporated into the ordinance at the second reading in the May 26th council meeting. Effectively submitted, and I'm assuming signed by Rob Bartlett, Chairman, Kelly Rankin, and Joe Seltzer.
You're gonna have to get this signed, Rob, but, all right, you've heard the report. Do I have a motion in a second to accept the report?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Rob's on the second. All right, any discussion, any additional discussion? This is a fairly thorough, comprehensive report.
What are the employees saying?
No one?
I'll just add in, I mean, I will say that Rob's digging as far as coming up with benchmarking data for other villages was almost incredible. The amount of detail we had to be able to, make this comparison. And then also the concept of offering multiple plans was, pretty well vetted, not only with, Haran, who is our medical insurance consultant, but it gives the employees a couple different options about are they willing to, in essence, pick a plan that has a little bit more of an out-of-pocket exposure to them, but with less premiums. And now with them paying a percentage of their premiums, they'll get the benefit of that. And then also increasing this health HSA contribution. In essence, the employees are going to be making a call about how much risk they're willing to take and how much premiums they're willing to pay. So I think it's a well thought out solution. And I also believe that what we're doing here is, number one, very similar to what other communities have done, and also very similar to what most corporations did probably 15, 20 years ago. So I think it's kind of catching up a little bit to where we probably need to be measurable or comparable to other communities.
I agree. I was going to say something similar. I just think the level of detail and time you put into this was outstanding. I got to see the spreadsheets kind of near the end of the process, and I was blown away by the amount of analysis, and I like the way it turned out. I think the decisions are conservative and still offer good choices and ease us into this. It's not all of a sudden everybody's paying for half of their medical insurance. It's really well done.
Oh,
And I wanted to thank Chief and Joni also. So they provided input as well in terms of offering multiple plans, which plans they thought would be the best to offer to our employees. So I want to thank Chief and Joni for that as well. They provided some really good guidance to us too.
Chief's shaking his head. In a positive way. All right, on roll call, Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Mrs. Graves,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Palazzolo.
Aye.
Rankin,
aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
All right, we'll pass that report. All right, moving on to miscellaneous. We've got a couple of things in there. Again, the council meeting scheduled for Monday, May the 25th will be held on the 26th. Oh, while we're talking about this, Maggie.
Yes, at 6:30. I will have it done and out of my committee by that time.
Oh, okay. So you're good with it? You
Yes.
can, yeah.
I
Okay.
think we're going to try, I haven't checked with everybody time-wise, but I think we're going to try to put together a committee meeting for next week to knock a few things out of that committee, that being one of them. So as long as it's okay that the report will come at that meeting, can we still start it at 6:30?
Well, I think as long as we all agree, sure.
Okay, it's fine with me if we do. I don't,
Yeah.
whatever anybody else wants.
I mean, we'll put it in the notice that way. Yeah, I think it'll be fine. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, and then one last thing. I want to take a minute on this. You've probably seen this thing about this Vapure 2800. It's kind of a high pressure dry steam cleaning device. The guy came in here to met with John and gave a demonstration.
Bill,
Yes,
just to clarify, John Scherpenberg, right?
Scherpenberg, yeah, John
Okay.
Scherpenberg.
Wanted
Yeah.
to clarify for everyone.
Gave a demonstration. Apparently this device, it has the ability, maybe even Chief can add to this. I don't know whether he was in on that demonstration. But it has the capacity and ability to basically sanitize and clean things much more rapidly than, say, using spray chemicals and, trying to wipe everything down and so on and so forth. It is a little pricey, but two points on this. Once we start back up Mayor's Court, we're really going to be faced with an issue in this, up here in the council chamber. All these gallery chairs, the tables, the rails outside, things of that nature. This device could really help us in that regard. And additionally, we could, maybe use it at the tennis courts, at the pool, at other, according to John, you can clean almost anything with it. Like I said, it's a little pricey. However, I believe that if we're, under the conditions that we're going to be using it, we may get a FEMA reimbursement on this.
Right.
It's one of those things that, like I said, it's a little pricey. I didn't want to stick my neck out and just give the okay on this. I'd like it for all of you to weigh in. Anybody got a thought on this?
I have a question. Do we have any idea as to its mobility to
Yeah,
take?
it's on wheels.
Okay, so, but it's not, it's on wheels, but it doesn't weigh 400 pounds, so we can't drag it around.
No, I think one, substantial guy could carry it around and then, carry it up the steps and wheel it around, I would
I
assume.
think I just saw Ed raise his hand. I think Ed just volunteered to be that guy.
I just haven't seen it. I'm not.
Kelly, it says it weighs 16 kilograms.
Yeah, 16, yeah, I see, right,
Okay,
yeah.
Did you say kilograms?
yeah, okay.
That's what?
So we're thinking about, is it, I have many questions.
I'd like to know what that is in pounds.
So that's about double it. So there's 4.54 kilograms per 1
Okay.
pound. So 2 kilograms.
35 pounds.
That's it? Wow.
Is that including full of water?
Well,
Yeah, right.
I think it comes in two parts. You could carry, the boiler up separately and then carry the controls and things up separately if you had to. I can't imagine that John or Kevin, could manipulate this easily.
So lots of questions. So I guess you answered part about what we'd clean with it, but so you can use it on like painted wood or stained wood, like the chairs, and it's not going to ruin them.
Yeah, apparently. Although two things here. We can either make a decision on this now with the information that we have, or we can, toss this into somebody's committee, let the guy come back out here and give a demonstration and decide it that way.
Well,
It's in the safety committee right now, right? It just got put into the safety committee.
Well,
No.
I'm just,
Yeah. No,
right. Do we buy, right, how, well, I guess my question to John is this a limited time offer? It looks like he's giving a nice discount. Do we need to bite while the iron is hot or?
Well, is there, yeah, so that's like,
steam is hot.
while the steam is hot, like how much, are we talking about sanitizing like the whole, like climbing thing at the park? Is it able to
Yeah,
cover like
we
that
could use it.
level of
We could use it
work?
at the tot lot, on all that equipment over there.
Okay.
You could use it on picnic tables. The way I
Look
understand
to
it,
see what else is out there that's really similar to this.
Okay,
Because
yeah, can I ask a quick question here? Because I think this is going to, Marcy, where we stand about trying to recruit that medical advisory group as far as to take a look at whatever procedures we come up with at the pool, if we decide to open it?
I have a list of names that I've put together. I haven't contacted them yet.
Okay, because would this be something to put through to them to see, I don't know if it works.
right.
Or
is there a better one that costs the same amount or less? Or this can't be the only game in town.
Well, I'd like to somehow be able to measure the effectiveness. Is this going to be better cleaning than just wiping it down with disinfectants? And then, how long are we going to have to be doing this type of stuff? Because, again, I got more questions at this point, whether we should even do it or not, because
Well,
it's
and-
kind of come out of left field that,
Well, and then the other
suddenly we need to do this.
And then the other thing too, is I sent an article to Bill and Joe about, it was written by an epidemiologist and talked about what environments are high risk. And, basically none of the intense outbreaks occurred out of doors. They were all indoor, poorly ventilated areas or places with high population density. So, do we really need to do the playground equipment if it's summer and they're sitting out there in the sun for 90-degree heat? The other issue about this is to consider with regard to FEMA reimbursement, is I did listen to that webinar about FEMA and that company that would help us municipalities, kind of basically get as much money as they can.
Right.
One of the points that they made is that in a typical FEMA disaster, it's one small geographic area. It's not the entire US, and the funds are likely to get get depleted very quickly.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can count on it
Right.
necessarily being reimbursed. It may be reimbursable, but to actually getting that money is a different horse of a different color.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, then maybe maybe this should go into a committee then, get more information. Maybe there are other things out there that are available for less. That's why I'm, putting this to you guys. What do you think?
Yeah.
Um,
I think so too. And I like Joe's idea. If Marcy's already getting this group of doctors for the pool, I think this would be another excellent way to tap into that knowledge base, that expertise to help us in that assessment as well.
Well, I don't know that your average physician would have an opinion about this. We can ask them.
But Marcy, I guess the question I would ask at some point is, what are the medical facilities doing to sanitize? And are they employing this type of technology? My understanding is they're just wiping stuff down, just cleaning really well with disinfectants.
I can speak from experience. Like we've hired a company to come in and decontaminate our plant, and they come through. It's expensive. And they're using chemicals to spray everything down. But in terms of an everyday sanitation, we're just using the right, cleaning materials that are rated to kill the virus. I went and looked on the website, I was just looking at this company, right? There's not a whole ton of information. It does say what things, it kills. It does have coronavirus on here, but I just don't know necessarily that there's just not a whole lot there.
Do you have the specific COVID-19, or because coronavirus is a whole group of viruses. There's more than one coronavirus.
Right. They don't have COVID-19, and they have it under tested bacteria, and they have SARS/coronavirus. And well, this isn't a bacteria, so no, it doesn't say specifically COVID-19.
So Bill, I agree with you, Bill. I think it makes sense to put it in the committee. I think that's the right thing to do.
And just one quick thing to think about. When Mayor's Court resumes up here, think of the volume of people that are going to be coming through this council chamber. And we are going to have some kind of a way, whether it's we hire it done or something, to basically clean and sanitize after a Mayor's Court. It's going to be a big job. Now, whether this thing does that for us, I don't know. And this is possibly why it should go into a committee. And hold on, Rick's got something to say.
Mayor, our next Mayor's Court hopefully will be in June.
Right.
And that court docket is going to be huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have
Mhm.
people from 3 courts that we've suspended
Mhm.
that are going to be in. Like you said, there's going to be, mass people coming through here. This won't hold all of them at one time. They'll be down.
Well, we're going to have some, we're going to have to hold people outside and only let a certain number, but there'll still be a large volume of people
There'll
coming
be
through.
a lot of people.
What's your plan? Are you going to just run this thing in between every person?
No. It would be after Mayor's Court, after court is over.
So I have one.
Well,
I don't know if we contracted with the company that does the bell tower part. We talked about contracting with the people who do the restrooms now to come do the council chambers. So
Right.
if we did, they have recently launched a like upgraded level service, obviously, to their clients, targeting like, because they do a lot of office buildings and schools and such. So obviously schools aren't an issue right now, but and they're doing a big advertising push to make sure their clients know that they have the service that's, you know, kind of better than their average even, which is great, available. So you may contact them, because getting them in, what is it, monthly, like one extra time, or, you know, on a special schedule to be the morning immediately after mayor's court, and they do the whole hallway down the steps, and they do the whole council chambers and all the doorknobs and even your office or whatever. It might not be that much more, because they're pushing it right now because they realize it's a necessity, and they've lost some people because of schools. So we can do it.
It's a good thought, Maggie. And I've seen, I mean, they've been, you know, they send me an email practically every, 7 days, sort of advertising. If they do have a full service of sanitation that we could add to the regular cleaning.
Yeah. And if it's only once a month.
Yeah, well, we may be able to get them in, after every mayor's court to come in. We should definitely price it out.
Yeah.
And find out how they do it. I mean, is it a wipe down? Is it with chemicals? I mean, how do they do it? But yeah.
They were advertising something about which cleaners they use, but it means very little to me, but you could call them.
Okay. Well, so then are we agreed this goes into obvious committee?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Hey, Avia, I will volunteer, even though I'm not on the safety committee, to run this by the doctors and let you know, the doctors I've recruited.
Sure.
And let you know what they say. I don't know that they'll have a lot to say about it. But I could be wrong, and I can even reach out to a couple medical facilities and that I know people and see what they say. So I'll be happy to take that little piece and report to you on that.
Right.
If that would be
Bill. Yeah, no, absolutely. And Bill, do you have this person's contact information, or there's not a lot of information on their website? So
well, I've got all the information that John gave me, and yeah, he knows how to get back in touch with the guy. So if you want to set up another demonstration, come out and he'll come out here and bring the machine and demonstrate it. Yeah,
or did he give you like a packet of information just about it?
Yes. Yeah. No, well, not much. I mean, it's more, I've got the brochures and things, with all the specs and stuff like that on it. Some accessories that come with it,
But not about its efficiency or,
Right.
how fast it cleans, what it specifically rates of cleaning.
No, I don't think I have that.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Well, I can reach out and give John a call tomorrow and pick his brain, since I'm pretty sure he's listening right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, we can, the information's out there and we can get it. Yeah. Okay. So we good on that?
Yep.
All right. Moving on to resolutions. Tony?
All right, one resolution, fixing a time for a public hearing on the 2021 budget.
All right. It looks like this is the third reading, so I need a motion and a second to pass.
I'll motion.
Or second.
Oh.
I'll second.
Second. Maggie had the second.
Yeah.
All right. Roll call, Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Mrs. Graves,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Palazzolo.
Aye.
Ms. Rankin,
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
Okay. You're kind of buffering there, Joe.
Aye. Okay, sorry.
No, yeah, okay. All right, let's pass that resolution. All right, moving on to ordinances.
Okay, the first one, ordinance levying a $5 motor vehicle license tax as authorized by section 4504.173 of the Ohio Revised Code and establishing new Mariemont Code of Ordinance number 110.12.
All right, this is the third reading. I need a motion and a second to accept.
So moved.
Second.
Maggie had the second.
Mhm.
Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Mrs. Graves,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Palazzolo,
Aye.
Ms. Rankin,
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
That ordinance will be passed. All right,
Next
Next.
one, ordinance levying a supplemental motor vehicle license tax and establishing a new Mariemont Code of Ordinance number 110.13.
all right. That's the third reading. I need a motion and a second to accept.
So moved.
Second,
Rob, Kelly had the second. Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Mrs. Graves,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis,
I get Mayor Bill.
Ms. Palazzolo.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin,
aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
All right, that will be accepted. All right, the last one.
All right, to amend ordinance O-11-20 of the Mariemont Code of Ordinances to increase payment for employees and to effect changes to full-time employees' healthcare plans.
All right, that's the first reading. We'll have the second reading next council. I think that concludes our business.
So I sent, no,
Hey,
I didn't send it in
bye
advance.
bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right, make it quick.
No. So again, I sent this all to you guys in advance. You know, Marcy asked if I would send these things in advance. So I'm trying to go ahead and do that.
Well, no, I asked if you would put them on the agenda.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't have all the data for all this stuff in time. So,
All right, go ahead, Rob.
the first thing was I sent out to you guys an update of where we stand from a cash basis. Also our revenue year to date and our spending year to date. And, you know, I put in the email to you guys calling out that we're $483,000 lower cash balance so far this year at this point in time versus last year. And part of that's just due to timing. So I don't, you know, I'm not raising a huge red flag, but we are going to get hit, we know, from a revenue standpoint and by the COVID-19, and our spending is definitely, the gap is growing versus what we had last month. It was 114 and now it's $135,000 ahead. So that spending rate is increasing. I sent to you also along in that same email a list of potential cost savings or cost delays that we could do, and also revenue. So Maggie provided me her input. I didn't get input from anybody else. Bill, you were going to meet with the department heads, right, and get their thoughts?
Yeah, I've been on and off having talks with all the department heads, trying to outline the situation, tell them what kind of money I'm looking for. Joe and I have been having conversations about where to look around for money. Yeah, it's an ongoing process.
Okay.
Bob, I have a list, and when I tried to put it into your document, I didn't know what funds certain things were in. I just didn't have the experience to do that.
Okay. If you
But
send it to me-
I
if
can
you
either
send it to
send
me,
them to you in an email, or I can read them now.
Once you send it to me, if you send it to me, Marcy, that'd be great.
And then is it okay with you if I just leave the fund blank, since I'm not sure exactly where, you know, like,
Yep.
where the garbage stickers fall in, you know?
Yep.
General fund.
I'm happy to fill those in.
Okay.
And I also put a lead contact for each one of these items too. So, you know, if you don't view yourself as a lead contact for those, let me know. And the cost savings, I just ballpark something. And Tony, if you have any better data on that, you know, feel free to let me know a different number that we should put in there.
Yeah, this was more
Okay.
general ideas rather than, I didn't have necessarily a specific number associated.
Sure. No, I think that's
No,
great.
it's
I think
ballpark.
great.
But I have been thinking about it, and like I said, I kind of went into a stumbling block when I went to stick it into your document, and I went over it a little bit with Bill, but didn't quite get it ready for today. So
Okay. Well, yeah, if you send it to me in an email, I'll be happy to incorporate it in there.
can I just scan this? No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, hold it up again. I almost got it.
So
checked.
Rob and I have been spending some time, obviously, for the past couple months looking at this stuff, trying to figure out where we're at from a cash perspective. And right now it is real difficult to try to figure out what kind of revenue reduction we might be looking at during 2020
Yep.
and or into 2021. Obviously, other municipal governments are really spooked right now. The city of Cincinnati is going through furloughs. Hamilton County is going through furloughs. The state of Ohio has already announced a lot of reductions in spending because of what they fear to be drops in revenue. Their revenue sources are somewhat different than ours because the state and the county rely on sales taxes, but they, also the state has a earnings tax. But as we sit here today, we probably think we're dealing with a earnings tax that might just be delayed and not reduced. And when I'm talking about the earnings taxes from 2019. And so far on the withholdings taxes for the Mariemont businesses, it's only down a little bit in April. But it's real hard to figure out exactly what's kind of going on there. But I have spent a lot of time in the last 2 months trying to figure out, okay, how did we get in this position where our cash balances are so low coming into 2020? And I went back and looked at, over the last 10 years, what kind of happened, because our cash balances coming into 2020 are probably half of what they were 10 years ago. And there was a couple things along the way that when I looked at it, and I know a couple of the department heads, when I've had conversations with them in the last 2 months, have said, we don't have a spending problem in Mariemont. We kind of have a revenue problem. And when I went back and looked historically what happened, and I've talked to some of the citizens too about kind of what's going on. And one of the questions they keep asking me is, how did we get in this situation? Because for the last 10 years, there's not really been much communication about, that we've got some problems in Mariemont that, we need to deal with. And it's probably been the revenue problem. And one of the big keys on this thing, when I went back and looked, in 2013, the state of Ohio eliminated estate taxes. And estate taxes used to bring in about $300,000 a year to Mariemont. And that got eliminated in 2013. And we really never identified revenue sources to kind of offset that loss of revenues that came in. And, and when I look at this, I kind of say, this is kind of the failure of, village leadership to really acknowledge this revenue deficiency. It kind of was there starting in 2013. It got addressed a little bit by the safety services levy that went through in 2018, which brought about $340,000 into the village budgets. But by that time, we had already gone through almost 5 years without adequate, resources coming in to, offset or meet the spending levels that are going on. And I think Rob has pointed this out, that if you go back and look over the last 5 years, we've probably been spending more than we brought in. And even in the year when the safety services levy cut in, we still spent more that year than what we brought in. So this has been going on for a while. And hence what it's led to is this $1 million cash balance that we entered the year with. And when I went back and looked, there was a couple things where we just completely blew during the process, where we had an opportunity to provide administrative services for neighboring communities' taxing process, and we just blew that, and it was blew primarily because of some petty personal grudges in the process. So there's been some real things that have happened in the past that have led us to this position, where now we're going to have to try to figure out how do we, run the village? Do we have enough revenues coming in? And now this COVID situation is kind of magnifying what's going on. But, one thing I will say that, in the past, village leadership kind of bragged about $1 million general fund balance. And what we now know by benchmarking with other communities, that goal was pretty much a false measure of success. Because over the last 10 years, not only did our general fund stay at that level, but we kind of spent a lot of the other monies that we had, including the permanent improvement funds, and that's down to minimal levels at this point. And we also have about $650,000 in debt obligations that we came into this year with. So bottom line, we got a challenge here. Now, I do believe, that, if we are honest with the citizens of Mariemont and explain to them what's going on, that I do believe we can, solve this problem and address the challenge. But we've got to be honest with the citizens of Mariemont on kind of where we stand.
Is a levy even something to discuss?
Personal opinion here, and I've told Bill this, I think we need to turn over every stone first on the cost side. And if there's any low hanging revenue side fruit that we can pick, like I know Chief has said he's going to go ahead and talk to the guy who runs the mayor's court to see what court fines, we've seen. So, we're going to look at some of those other kind of things. So before I would want to go down that path, I really think we have to make sure that we've checked everything in terms of cost and other, again, low hanging fruit from the revenue side of things that we can do.
Right.
Because we have to communicate to Joe's point, we have to communicate that to the residents,
Right.
show them,
Right.
here's all the things that we've done to
Mhm.
try and reverse the trend that we've been under. Again, it's, we spent $860,000. We've reduced our cash balance by $860,000 in the last 5 years. That's amazing. And that's including a levy that we passed that raised $310,000, It's like, that's just not healthy. That's not good. It's not sustainable. We've all talked about that. So, we need to start to try and get in front of this. And as I said, for me personally, at least, I would like to make sure that we're turning over all the stones for every savings we can do first, before we go off and start having that kind of conversation. So that's my opinion. But
I would tend to agree with you. I don't think we should jump straight to a levy. I think there are, some things we need to look at. There's some things we need to understand to try to figure out, can we run this village on less dollars? And what services would be impacted by trying to run this village on those less dollars? And if the citizens of Mariemont or residents of Mariemont believe that we should keep the level of services where we're at right now, I don't think the math works. We don't have enough money coming in. Now, I think we can get through 2020 with what we're talking about doing to manage costs this year, including, deferring the road project helps us a lot in that process. And I would like to see us get through 2020 and come out of this year with the same cash balances that we went in with. And I think that would be an absolute win this year if we can get that done. And as we go into 2021, then try to figure out, okay, what types of revenues we're going to be dealing with, and how do we maintain services with that level of revenues? And if it doesn't work, then I think the alternative is, do we try to drop the service levels? But I think at some point we make that presentation to the residents to explain to them there's a couple different ways we can do this. And if you want things to operate the way they do today, it's going to require additional dollars. Unfortunately, we're not the federal government. We can't just print cash.
Hey, Joe, just for anybody listening, because I don't know if everybody's clear on the operational definition, would you define all like the services? I mean, obviously trash and whatever, but can you walk through that super fast?
I'm looking at all the services that we provide. Fire, police, trash, maintenance, recreation, all of it has to be looked at because, right now, and Tony, I think our appropriation is what, $4.9 million?
Sounds
rough
right.
terms.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to figure out where do we find $4.9 million in revenue to pay for that appropriation. And last year, our revenue was somewhere around 4.75 million. So we were kind of budgeting a 2% increase in revenues to meet the current year spending budget.
Hey, Rob,
yeah,
off the top of your head, what were the big budget deficits? I know the pool is about 50 grand. Is that right?
it was 50, yes, 59,000 last year.
So 60. Okay. And then the waste was about,
That's like about $70,000 to $80,000 of deficit.
Office?
that's $130,000 that right there.
Mhm.
And then was there one other big area of deficit spending?
Well, we don't, because there's not many places where we have revenue that can line up exactly with that. I mean, last year, one of them was from the improvement fund. We finished the addition last year, so that was an additional 260,000 or so that got spent last year that won't happen this year. But
Right.
to Joe's point, now we've loaded 650.
Something else. Right.
Yeah.
And we have to pay that off. We have to pay 150 of that this year. Just that's for the ambulance is 50 roughly, and the additional 100,000. So I'm trying to think, Marcy, to answer your question. I don't know if I can't think of another area where we line up revenue and expense exactly like we do for those two others. I
Okay,
mean, the tennis does that. Tennis is like within $1,000 or so, I think it is, of revenue and expense. So that's rounding for some of this stuff.
Well, the building department runs at a deficit. We know that. The revenue and expenses.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
They don't line up. Yeah.
Right, because that's one of the things we have on our list that's been,
Yeah.
it's been in the, public works. And I know Kelly's looking at this stuff is
Right.
what we charge? What do we charge for fees for this kind of stuff? So,
Right.
yeah. So Kelly, I can't remember, I sent you the last 2 years, and I think it was like 60,000 one year and 35,000 the other year that we've been in a deficit, to your point, Bill, about what we pull in for fees.
Right.
Well, permits, fees, and other
Yeah.
things.
so just by fixing those three problems, if we can, we could save $200,000.
It
That
just
would be
barely
great.
gets you back to break even
And-
now.
Right. And when you say fix it, Marcy, are you talking about increasing trash fees? Or are you talking about trying to figure out how we pay less for trash?
No, I'm gonna chime in, see how we pay less for trash
Okay.
would be the big one.
Yep, I agree.
So there's something that's been kind of hanging out there. This is very specific, just made me think of it. The chief and I talked about, I don't know, 5 years ago, in terms of court fees, mayor's court fees. I think at one point we were really, really low, and we thought about increasing that to benchmark it with other communities.
Is there room? Is there room in the fees?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. Ed is saying-
Meg, I can address that. Chief Hines and I have talked about this on many different occasions.
Yeah, we have to.
Right now, we switched magistrates a couple of years ago. Who's a wonderful, wonderful lawyer. He's a good magistrate, but he's got a philosophy that he doesn't find quite as much as our prior magistrates, because then you don't have the collection problems that we used to have. And then we save resources that way with our people down in the police department, not bird dogging these guys that owe us a lot of money.
Mhm.
I think though, and plus he's a little bit more money than our last magistrate. So I think what we need to do, and I think the chief is going to take the laboring oar on this, talk to our magistrate and convince him that we really need to goose these fees up a little bit. Don't you think, Rick? Because our revenues are down substantially
Okay.
from what they typically have been.
Okay.
And
So-
it's his philosophy, which I can't.
Just
Yes.
to build on that, yeah, because Ed, you're right. In 2018, we collected about $83,000 in court fines. And last year we collected 66.5. So that's down about $17,000 just in 1 year alone. So
Yeah,
Okay, so you're talking more about the I don't know, punishments he levies, like the fines for various infractions, but is there a separate line item where it's like the fee, like court costs basically that we?
yeah, so
Great.
there is. And so I'm looking at, again, at 2019, it was about $4,000. And then, because Chief is explaining this to me, we charge like $65, but over half of that goes to the county.
Right.
We only get to keep a third roughly.
Right.
And so again, it was $4,000 in 2019. It was $3,700 in 2018. So
Okay, is that something to put into, I'm happy to take that in my committee. Since I'm gonna get rid of a couple things next week, I can load a new one in there if you want to start benchmarking.
sure. Well, again, I think for the fines, I think
That would be the
Rick
magistrate.
is going to go ahead and talk that. So I think
Right.
the fines, we can go
Right.
Rick, go and do that. But I think
Right,
yes,
that really wasn't what I was thinking, just fees.
yeah, I think that's worth,
it's worth looking into. Obviously, the first step is to talk about the fees or the fines that get assessed, We have maximum amounts that we can penalize somebody for, depending on the nature of the
Right.
offense. And we're nowhere near that with what we find each and every case, you know. If
Mhm.
it's $150 maximum fine, we're finding like $25. And we do need to goose that up. Certainly the court costs, we've been talking about that for years, haven't
I
we?
remember that was one of our first conversations ever.
The
8 years ago.
overwhelming- the overwhelming majority of the court costs goes to the state.
Right. Yeah, so I think those are two issues that we need to talk with. I think Rick and I can take care of the issue about trying to increase revenues through fines. And then Maggie, if you want to take a rules and law committee and kind of explore because I don't know the answer to this, explore the other communities, what kind of court costs they assess for each and every criminal case that comes through. That would be helpful.
Okay, Bill, can I put that in my committee? Would you put
Yeah.
it in my place?
You want me, yeah, we'll refer it right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Maggie, I can help you with that.
Yeah, I know, you were gonna be my first call. Okay, so that, and then now we're on my committee. Can I just take out the recodification? We kind of talked about it last week, or 2 weeks ago. We're not gonna do it till 2021, and I'm not going to forget. It's not something I'm gonna forget to do. It's just sitting there. It's gonna
So we're
sit there.
taking that out. You want that
Yeah.
out? Okay.
Yeah, like review MCO code, I want to keep. We're going to work on that. But because we're just going to slowly tick through changes that need to be made. But the actual recodification, if we're not going to spend that money, then it's not something we're going to forget to do.
Yeah.
So it doesn't
Right.
need to sit there.
So that would go through American legal, right, Max?
As of now, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's who we've used traditionally.
It was around $15,000. So yeah, that was on the cost savings was a delay thing. That's a delay.
Right.
amount.
Right,
Not eliminate the delay.
right.
No. All right, we good?
One more thing. Hey, Rob, do you have any benchmarking on what other communities, what kind of credit they give on income taxes? Let's say they work in downtown, so they get a 1% credit. They only pay a 1/4% to Mariemont. Do you know what other communities are doing? Like Fairfax, is it 0.5 or is it a 1/4%? Is it nothing? Because we
I
can
don't know the
change
answer.
that from 1 to 0.75, you know?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know the answer. That's a good question.
I started looking at that just informally, and I think that Fairfax gives a credit that's equal to their income tax rate. And I go
So they
back
give
and
a full-
verify that. Yeah.
Mm,
And so we're giving a 1% credit
1%.
on the 1.25. You know, and so I started looking at that a little bit, and I think Newtown is actually given a 1% credit too. So, but I mean, and I was just trying to do that looking at their tax returns, you know, calling them up and seeing what kind of credit they were given. But we can do something a little more formal like that. And I think Deanna actually has a schedule that tracks the actual tax rates for a lot of communities. So yeah, I think we definitely should take a look at that to benchmark to see where we're at on both of those numbers, not only on the income tax rate that we charge, because, you know, right now our income tax rate for Mariemont is 1.25, but Fairfax is at 1.75.
Mhm.
So the question I have on that one, because I think that's a really interesting topic. When you're a municipality and when you give that type of credit, and then you're obviously, when you decide to do it, you're weighing the amount that you're thinking about giving. I guess, like, in my mind, the decisions that you'd make about that amount would be partly what is the need for the income in your community, but secondarily, like, what is the goal achieved by doing that? Like, are you trying to attract new residents? Is that kind of like a CRA type thing, you know, like where we're attracting new people to come or trying to keep the people that we have? And if you're a community that struggles with like people moving in and out because of whatever reasons, you'd be inclined to give a larger one. But if you are a community that maintains residents other ways by having services or great schools or whatever, you would do something different. Like, what is the stated goal and how can we work backwards from that to make sure we get it right there?
Yeah, that's a great question.
We could probably spend hours
Of course.
talking through the different theories on why you would put your income tax rate at one rate and your credit at another rate.
Mhm.
You know, some communities do that, so they're just collecting taxes from their businesses and not picking it up from the residents.
Mhm.
And that's why they would, you know, give a big credit. And so and then you also, you don't operate in a vacuum. So if you take your tax rate up, are you still going to attract businesses? You know,
Right.
if somebody else right across the border has a lower tax rate. So there's a lot of different
But there's
factors
also
on that.
tax credits for the, payroll. I was reading the document, I think Rob or Joe sent it. It's the one that the city was using. So there are, talks about there's tax credits that you give for longevity of your employees or longevity of the business being here. I mean, you do that on the business side different ways. But for personal income tax, if you have a stated philosophy and follow it, then that could guide the numbers a little bit.
And the other thing, I don't think we need to go out for a vote on this. I think it'd just be something council could do. Does that sound right, Bill?
For the
Yeah,
credit.
I talked to Deanna about this a couple days ago, and it's her understanding that this is something that we can do just in council. You don't take this you don't take it for a vote.
Right,
The
right.
residents. Is that right? Yeah.
But I would say it's the same process, whether we're going to pass a tax levy through council or through a vote. We have to make sure the residents understand why we're going to take the action we're going to take.
Right,
And they have to understand the alternatives. And so we got a fair amount of work here. That's probably going to take 6 to 8 months to do it. Rob and I have been looking at the numbers on the past couple months. We probably should be okay in 2020, but we're still going to see what happens with the tax receipts from the month of April that we actually receive in May. So we'll see those numbers the second week of June to see how much the withholding taxes might be dropping off. And quite frankly, on that resident tax deal, it's very difficult to figure out what's going on with that because we are not allowed, because of confidentiality rules, to look at the detail. So all we can work with is the summary reports that Deanna provides. And it's real hard to figure out what's going on behind the scenes on those numbers.
All right. Yeah.
But,
and
and again, I only bring that, I brought up what I'm doing is because this is a problem that this mayor, the new mayor and the new council has inherited. This is not something that's been created in the past couple months. It's been going on for a fairly long time. But unfortunately now with the COVID situation, it's dropped into our lap. And I would like to say, again, my goal was to try to do whatever we need to do so we don't end the 2020 with any less of cash reserves, just try to keep it where it's at. And I think we can get that, through, delaying the road project and what I'm calling non-painful reductions in spending during 2020. If the revenue goes down deeper than that, we're going to start having to talk about painful changes.
Yep.
And maybe we accelerate the talk about a levy or a tax increase.
right, but we won't know until July when when these tax returns are due and their estimates are due for first and second quarter, really.
And hopefully that doesn't get extended to September the 15th.
Yeah,
Is
I
there
doubt that.
discussion of that?
I told Bill, I just read something where the Trump administration is talking about taking the payment date out past the election.
Oh,
Geez, old Pete.
no.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
I
that's
Not
killing
talk
us.
more about
come
that.
on. That just, no.
Now, our only hope is, Tony, I think you looked at this at one point. We have to follow the state, right?
Right, yes.
Whatever the state does.
Yeah.
And the state's probably in the same boat that we are, that they get a big chunk of their revenues from the income taxes. But I don't know how they would say, okay, feds are going to be extended till December, but the state wants their tax returns now.
Are they
Because-
required to follow the federal government the way we're required to follow the states?
They're not required, every state's different,
Okay.
but most of them follow. Yeah, they all follow.
I mean, it's good manners,
Yeah.
but if you need the money, I mean, geez.
Yeah, there's a limit on how much we want to obey.
All right, so,
I mean, and that doesn't delay like the quarterly taxes though either, right? So if we, right now in July, you're going to have to pay your taxes and then also then the past estimates, so, right?
Right, for the first and second quarter.
Yeah, so it's just delaying the inevitable.
Right.
And our paycheck. I mean, like the municipality's paycheck to be able to do things.
and let me just
Right.
add one thing, just to be crystal clear. I do not believe the situation is dire right now. It needs to be addressed. And so we have to do this work now to get ahead of this before we get into a situation where we don't have choices and options.
Okay, we good?
Yeah, well, so the other question, my second one.
Let's table it.
This is all. Does anyone have any questions about
Quickly,
the process for tracking what projects are committed, what items are completed in the committee? So I sent that all out. I don't want to go through the numbers or anything else. I just wanted to say the process. Did anyone have any questions or? Because again, we did that last year as well.
Nope. I was telling Rob, I love it because it keeps me motivated. If I'm competing against myself or others, I will be much better behaved and I like it.
So,
Good for me. I know.
okay, so again, what I'm proposing to, let's, because of what's going on with the COVID-19, let's not do anything, just not have any numbers until September. September will be 2/3 of the way through the year. And so that'll give us time to get some other things done because people have
Hey,
some.
Rob, actually, I when I was looking at this, I just kind of seem to think that it depends on your chairman and on your committee and the kind of projects you have and what might be delayed because of COVID-19. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with a date, a target date. And I don't have a problem doing like quarterly updates or even monthly updates, but quantifying it just seems a little draconian to me.
Well, and to Marcia's point, I mean, there's not all that stuff and all the committees is black and white.
No, what? Say it
I
again.
was going to say, is that some projects or some things in the committees are going to take more effort than others. So that's a valid point when you were just quantifying it that way.
Well, maybe we can wait it a little bit. This is annoying statistician Maggie, but if it's not just done or not done, that's kind of where my idea had come up, which we can keep or vacate, whatever, in terms of estimated finish dates, just to let people know kind of where we are on it, project management wise. If it's a very complicated project with lots of moving pieces, but you're having regular meetings, I think that should count for your favor, not against you, just because it's still on your docket. And I think, there's some.
But who are we accountable? I mean, we're accountable to our residents, and I agree that, but we're all basically 6 equal people doing our own thing. It's not like I report to Bill or I report to Rob or whatever. And I don't know. To me, it just seemed extreme.
We've had problems in the past, to be very blunt, Marcy, about things not you. I mean, you're new. So, but we've had in the past of things sitting in committees and it had actually ended up getting moved over into Kelly's committee.
Well, and I agree
not
that
right. It's not right that we have that kind of stuff.
Well,
So,
I agree that should be part of the discussion. And like I said, I don't have a problem with doing updates and having target dates. I think those are good to have.
but you won't
but-
go ahead. I'm sorry.
But I just don't like the idea of 0% on something that, I mean, I'm a competitive student here. I went to med school and, I like my GPA, and to see a 0% by my name when my target days aren't till July, I don't like that.
Right. And that's exactly why I said I didn't want to talk about numbers tonight.
yeah, guys, let's bring this to a close. I mean, this is just running on, and we can. It's a good point and it's a good topic, but let's save it for another night or for a committee.
For a committee, yeah. I mean, all these points, in my opinion, I agree with everything everyone said. There's issues that really need to be addressed, but so many of those issues would typically go to a committee and then have the committee report to council. So it's probably an easier way to do it, where you get the consensus of your committee and then council trusts those committee members to come up with an answer that's the best for the whole village.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd do.
Okay.
Okay,
Call it quits.
we're adjourned.
Oh, wow. That was loud. All right.
Well, it had to go a long ways.
Dang. I heard it.